in complex projects with so many competing priorities, right? How do you determine which sustainability initiatives should take precedence from a project management standpoint? Because we have so many competing priorities, right?
A lot of project managers always say, there's scope, there's schedule, and then there's your budget. And you can only control two of them. What do you have to do just because local codes and require it for you to do? There are some areas you have to save water.
Most teams assume sustainability slows projects down, but in reality, the biggest delays often come from choosing the wrong priorities in the first place. Understanding which sustainability initiatives deserve attention and when is what separates well-managed complex projects from those that struggle. In this episode, I'm joined by David Borchardt, PE Lead AP, BOMI HP, Senior Mechanical Engineer at MD Energy Advisors, with more than 2 decades of experience in high-performance building operations, energy efficiency, and sustainability consulting. We'll talk about how to prioritize sustainability initiatives in complex projects, how project managers can build teams that support high performance and efficiency goals, and the strategies to keep issues like delays, permit hurdles, and material disruptions from derailing progress. If you want to lead complex projects more efficiently while driving meaningful value for clients and stakeholders, this episode will give you actionable insights you can apply right away. Before we jump in, I want to tell you about something that's tailor-made for project managers in the AEC industry. It's called AEC PM Connect, and it's the event designed for PMs who want to level up how they deliver projects, communicate teams, and lead with confidence, all through practical, real-world strategies and tools. And here's the most exciting part. At this event, we'll also be announcing the winners of the AEC PM Awards, recognizing professionals who lead with purpose and deliver measurable results. Just imagine someone from your firm being named AEC PM of the Year. That kind of recognition can boost your people, your culture, and your firm's reputation in a big way. The event will take place on June 10th, 2026 at the Forest Country Club in New Jersey. You can register now at aecpmconnect.com. And if you want to nominate someone for the awards, head over to aecpmawards.com to download the nominations guide before the deadline, which is February 28th. I'm your host, Fiona Johan, and this is the AEC Project Management Podcast. Let's jump right in. All right, it is now time for our PM Conversation of the Week with David Borchardt, PE Lead AP and BOMI HP. David, welcome to the Engineering Project Management Podcast.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for joining us. We thought you could tell us, or start by telling us a little about yourself and how you got started in high-performance building operations and sustainability consulting.
Sure. Well, the way I got involved is I've been in energy my entire career, but a little over 20 years ago, I joined a commercial development firm that wanted to build high-performance buildings and LEED Platinum buildings, which was sort of the ultimate at the time. And so I started getting involved in that and started working on a building that became the first LEED Platinum building in the Mid-Atlantic and was still, and has even been highlighted in a book of the world's most best high-performing buildings. So it got me interested and sort of made me an authority on the subject because I had to learn along with everybody I worked with. We had to learn how we were going to do this.
Great.
And, essentially, so we started doing that. And then once we did that, we started to certify the entire portfolio. We benchmarked in a 20 million square foot portfolio, multiple buildings. We started doing real-time energy management and just finding ways to save energy across the portfolio. So it was really became an active part of my job every day and helped me take this, portfolio of buildings that were from the 60s and bring them up to the 21st century.
That's very cool. Thanks you for sharing that bit of history, which I think will lead us to another question I have for you. In that, in complex projects with so many competing priorities, right? How do you determine which sustainability initiatives should take precedence from a project management standpoint? Because we have so many competing priorities, right?
Absolutely. A lot of project managers always say, there's scope, there's schedule, and then there's your budget. And you can only control two of them. Now, some people might disagree with that, but that's not what we're here to
I
discuss.
live by that,
So
so I'll take
essentially,
it.
what we do, essentially, what you do in that case is you look at where I'll call it the low hanging fruit of sustainability opportunities. What do you have to do just because local codes and require it for you to do? There's some areas you have to save water. There's some areas you have to save energy. There's some places you have to do stormwater. These are things that are already built into your design. And maybe you have to do just a little bit extra to make sure you're meeting the sustainability goals. And energy, regardless of whether you're going to hold the building for 5 years, 2 years, or forever, energy is an important factor, and it increases energy efficiency increases the value of the building. In commercial real estate, you talk about net operating income, and if you can increase the net operating income, you increase the value, which increases the cap rate, which decreases the cap rate, which makes the building more valuable. So it's always important to understand what you're doing and how it impacts the property overall and the future operations of that building. It's not just, I'm going to build it and give somebody the keys. No, I'm going to build this. I'm going to commission it. I'm going to turn it over to whoever, but I'm still responsible for that building. If you work for a developer and you do this, you're responsible for that building, regardless of whether you built it a week ago or you built it 5 years ago. It becomes your building, and questions will always come back to you.
I love that viewpoint. I think that's important with anything, right? Like, it is yours and it will come back.
In the AEC industry, skilled project managers are the backbone of success. EMI's AEC PM certification offers tailored training, ongoing support, and exclusive access to premium content that keeps your team sharp and effective. From foundational training to advanced leadership tools, set your team apart with certified growth. Learn more at aecpm.com. That's aecpm.com.
When evaluating efficiency measures, how do benchmarking, energy audits, or performance data influence your recommendations in the early decisions of the project managers need to make?
Well, in an existing building, you can benchmark. Obviously, in a new building, you can. And same thing with an energy audit. You can't audit a project that hasn't been built yet. But performance data, you do get a little bit of performance data from maybe the energy model that was built for the building might show you something, might teach you something. And it's just a way to say, what are we going to focus on? But one of the more interesting things I found in at least the last, I'll say 10 years, at least in the Mid-Atlantic, some of the assumptions of historic weather data are sometimes a little out of date. We're finding more and more days with higher temperatures, and you're finding buildings that where you could previously cool them at night, the temperatures aren't getting low enough, or the humidity is staying so high, you're running the buildings at very high levels. So one of the things I try to do now is kind of take into consideration how many days might we be at a peak to understand that. So for a new building, is there something we can do to make sure the building stays comfortable over a long period of time? And same thing with colder temperatures. So, but on existing buildings, if I'm looking at a portfolio, I might look at the benchmarking and say, you know what, I'm going to look at my lowest benchmark building. And then I'm probably going to do an energy audit. Now, how am I going to frame the energy audit? Well, if I know this building has old systems that probably are at the end of their useful life, I might do a phase 2 energy audit, a level 2 ASHRAE audit, where I get an idea of the cost of doing replacement. Because when you work for a developer and you understand that, you got to understand that you're going to have to probably go out for a loan, get capital, know what this is going to cost. So you take this data and you pass it on to your finance team and say, what kind of loan can we sustain on this? What kind of investment can we put into this building? What kind of capital could we get just for the way the building is performing today? And are we looking to upgrade things? Are rents going up? Are they going down? How are we going to do this? And maybe it's time to what a lot of in the development industry call to reposition a building. So you're going to put in new HVAC systems. You might make the lobby look prettier. You put in that new fitness center, whatever you need to do to just sort of make everything improve. So you got to use that level 2 audit. But if I'm just walking into a building, I benchmark it, it has a low score, I'm going to send an engineer out there or somebody experienced to just walk the building. What is the low-hanging fruit? You always find something. No matter how well a building is operated, you're always going to find something. Is it lights that need to be upgraded? Are your set points proper on the building management system? Do you have air leakage in a place? One of my personal favorites, I was walking an older building and they kept complaining about temperatures that were too hot in certain areas and too cold in other areas. Well, it turned out the thermostats were put right by the front door.
Oh, well, that would do it.
And in the middle of winter, people were coming in and out, and it was overheating certain areas. And the thermostats that were controlling adjacent areas were in the overheated areas. So they were being cooled. So needless to say, we had areas that were cold, areas that were hot. So all it took was relocating thermostats to a more sensible location where they actually measured the temperature in the space you wanted to heat and cool to take care of that. And it didn't require replacement of your HVAC system. It didn't mean maybe in 5 years you might not need to, but you did need to invest that capital today. So it's taking a look at the things that make sense. The lowest, I call it the lowest hanging fruit. There's always something. And it is amazing how many buildings I find, even brand new buildings with thermostats located right next to doors.
What I'm hearing repeat already as a theme a little bit that I really like that you could apply to any kind of project management, right? Is that you're looking holistically at the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yes.
You're taking a step back saying, if I'm improving XYZ, how can I make that better for the building as a whole? Which I think
Yes.
is so important because sometimes we get really siloed in on our one little problem and don't take a step back. And then also the lowest hanging fruit, right? That's always where's the biggest bang for our buck here that we can do something with today to move us forward? And those two things in combo are hard to beat, right?
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
love that you're bringing that up. Even for anyone listening who's not specifically on, the same route of project management, but those two themes so far, I think, are really important to pause and note. And as we think about that some more, I want to ask you about when you're assembling a project team, what key skills or qualities do you look for in those team members or subcontractors to support this high performance, sustainably driven outcomes?
I want to find the people who are willing to think outside the box. Years ago, I was interviewing MEP firms for a project, and I had this guy come in and go, "We do this, and that's all we do. We do it well." And I'm thinking, he doesn't know how to work outside of that box. And I need someone I always need people, just like the people I hire. I need people who think outside the box, can think outside of what they do. I'm not just the electrical engineer. I'm not just the structural person. I'm not just the project manager for the footings or something. I can do more. I see what is the impact of what I do on others in the project. How does it impact other people? And it doesn't mean they want to always throw out different ideas, but one of the things that I like when I hire people, I want people who think differently than I do. I want people who have a different background than I do, because if everybody just thinks like me, I'm not going to do anything creative. I want people who are going to constantly challenge me in what my decision-making process is, so I understand how we can do best as a team. I once had a team of people, and I realized we're sitting at a table, and everybody was from a different, born and raised in a different continent, but North America. All right.
That's
Everybody at the
great.
table, but myself. And it was like, this is amazing, It's amazing. I had people, and we throw out great ideas, and it was a really strong team because people had different cultural backgrounds, different way of looking at things, and it was one of the best teams I ever worked with.
I
So
love that. The diversity of thought is so
yeah,
important. And
yeah,
it lets you have those moments of saying, what did I miss? And there are answers
yes,
instead of just silence. Cause they're like, oh, we all think the same.
yeah,
We're Yeah, I love that. I feel I'm a strong proponent for the diversity of thought in a project, especially I ask my team all the time, what did I miss here? What am I
mhm,
forgetting?
yep.
And I love that they are from different places and have different thoughts. So I'm really happy you brought that to the table. With project management, we have issues like schedule delays, material shortages, permitting challenges always come up. And they're always going to arise in these more complex, like AEC projects. How do you make sure that those don't derail your sustainability goals for an overall project process?
I- If I ever have a project that runs perfectly, I would be surprised. I always have. There is no such thing as a perfect project. So you're always going to have something going wrong, and you just got to keep your eye on the prize. And what are the things you do when you're trying to reach a certain benchmark in lead or whatever, BRIAM or whatever you're benchmarking in? You always have a little bit of cushion in there. I was just discussing a schedule with a project manager, and I was like, well, where's our cushion in there? Because we need we need some cushion. Where are we going to make up time if we have to? And so you always make sure you have a cushion because there's some things that are just not going to happen. You know, I mean, you will have hiccups, you will have failures, you're going to have something that's going to go wrong, and if you don't have that cushion, you can't get to the project end the way you want to.
I always tell my team, is that an internal or an external deadline?
Yeah.
Right? What internally, like I know that we might have 2 more weeks of grace period on this, but we can't we might need that cushion.
Yes.
I think that's very crucial. I like that little tidbit. And so when you're talking about, I think deadlines is a good way to, or looking at scheduling. What strategies help you to set clear and realistic expectations with all your stakeholders, right? Your owners, your contracts, your suppliers, especially when sustainability targets require alignment across all of these teams?
I'll start with the owners because they're the ones who are paying the bills and writing the checks. And you tell them this is the goal we're going to meet, but you have to be clear to everybody you're talking to that this is a priority for you also. You can't just say, I want my X, Y, and Z, and regardless, but you got to make sure I want my X, Y, and Z, but don't forget about our sustainability goals at the same time because they don't know what they don't know. And a good owner will know what they need to understand from their project management team. I had worked with an owner once who was obsessed with finishes, the paint, the carpet, the stone, whatever it might be. And I remember one day we were sitting with him and I go, you're really interested in this stuff. And, what is that? Why? And his comment was, that's what I understand. This is what I understand. And this is what I can influence. I don't know about the structural steel. I don't know about how we get the stone. I don't know about any of that stuff. So if we look at that case, and that's a perfect example because we had a wall finish, a certain wood finish that they were looking for, but it couldn't get exactly what they were looking for. But it was a true sustainability issue. We explained to them that if we narrow your choices do you think you could find something that's acceptable? And they were like, if it impacts the sustainability goal, yes, I will find something that works for me. So explaining that at the same time and having an owner who listens and understands that it's not just my way or the highway, that it's important to do that. And then when it comes to everyone else in the process, you just say, this is an expectation. This is non-negotiable. This is what we expect on this project because it's an owner priority. So that's what makes it so important. And that's why you select your contractors who are going to be embedded in the process of sustainability. You're checking on them throughout the process. You're not just waiting to the very end. You're setting milestones. Okay, we're going to meet, we're going to talk about the schedule, but we're going to talk about how's your documentation coming for the sustainability goals.
I really like that. What I really like that you said in there was not only is he listening to you, but you recognized a pattern and you asked some questions. Like,
Yeah.
why are you so interested in
Yeah.
this? So you had that background to fall back on later when something else came up.
Yeah.
That's such an important part of the project manager role. Along that vein, can you share an example where integrating energy efficiency or high performance measures delivered measurable ROI or long-term operational benefits for your client?
Absolutely. When you're looking at either energy efficiency goals, the first thing you're going to look at least for a brand new building, you're going to look at what's your envelope, what's your fenestration, is it sealed, how well is it performing, and does it meet the goals of your energy model of what you were assuming when you started the project. So you start with that, and then you look at maybe your HVAC systems or the way you control them. And you have one of the best ones I think I've ever used was CO2 sensors. That's, I think, by far one of the easiest and cheapest things to incorporate a building that's going to save energy. Because one of the things I've learned from those is that buildings are designed to turn on at 6 a.m. for an 8 a.m. start and turn off at 6 p.m. We're just talking a standard office building, but this could also apply to a multifamily building in a hallway, because what CO2 sensors do is not everybody shows up at 8 o'clock and not everybody leaves at 6. So why are you providing fresh 100% or code required fresh air the entire day? And a CO2 sensor will vary that during the day. And one of the most interesting things I've seen is that starting around 11:30 till about 1:30, you're using less fresh outside air because people are going out to lunch. Or around holidays, the day before Thanksgiving, we just had Thanksgiving, or, on with the holidays coming up, Christmas Eve. People are leaving early, and there's no reason to heat and cool a bunch of outside air. But one of the benefits that I can't quantify per se is using CO2 sensors in specific rooms like conference rooms. Everybody's been in a conference room where you're there the entire day for a long meeting, and by the end of the day, you've got a headache, you can't see straight, you can't think. I'll deal with my email tomorrow, everything else. You put a CO2 sensor in a conference room where you can bring in extra outside air. People are fresh. They feel okay by the end of the day. They're not exhausted because a conference room might be designed for 20 people, but you're packing 40 people in there for a big, important meeting. So that's probably one of the easiest ones to always talk about. And then, of course, there's like I said, the base HVAC system that's going to increase the value of your building, increase your NOI, and do everything you can to, lower the cap rate and make the building more valuable.
You just changed my entire viewpoint on day-long conference rooms. So I'm going to ask if there's a CO2 sensor in there because I'm not feeling so good anymore. And maybe I can blame it on that.
Yeah, exactly. You can.
I like this.
Yes.
Thank you so much for letting me walk away with that.
Yeah.
That's great. I actually really locked into that one. I like that. That is very low-hanging fruit that you're creating large impact with.
Yes. That's
That's a big one. So when we're talking about, sustainability concepts, they can be highly technical. Some of us are in it day in and day out. How do you communicate them in ways that help your project managers, your owners, and your non-technical stakeholders stay aligned and committed? And communication is so important. So breaking down these complex thoughts is really crucial.
Well, earlier in my career, I actually worked in nuclear waste. Okay.
Even more complicated.
Even
Uh-huh.
more, even more, right? So one of the things I was an engineer, and I was as geeky an engineer as you can imagine, and I couldn't explain a simple concept to somebody about radiation or whatever without going so deep and going off the deep end. And because of what we were doing and who we were contracted with the government, there was a lot of communication going out to public and public stakeholders and Congress people and everything else. So one of the things, we had a team of folks who were communication experts who actually work, true communication experts, like how you stand, what you wear when you communicate with the public. Stuff I've never done, but they would talk to folks about, you know, go out with a unbuttoned shirt and, you know, look with your sleeves rolled up, that type of thing when people were talking to the public. It was very interesting. And one of the things they taught me is you need to learn to simplify concepts for people who are not technical. And it taught me some good lessons, and I worked with them quite a bit, in just learning how to write these concepts. And they would take them and translate them into English, but they would telling me how I could help them understand them better. And I'd work with them, and that taught me to take highly technical concepts and simplify them. And that's
That
one of the best lessons I've learned. And it's a way that I can take different concepts of sustainability and make them accessible to a lot more people, and also teaching a class in sustainability and construction helped a lot, as because students taught me way more than I ever knew or learned or understood by their questions, by just the look on their faces. You're trying to explain something and you get the look and you're just going, they're not getting this, are
this is
they?
not
No.
landing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that part's so important. We actually teach about it in our leadership development course a lot at EMI, is about like presenting on a topic, but you're not presenting to people who speak your language, right? You gotta come and first of all, you gotta know your audience, you gotta know your room. What speaks to them? Is it a prop? Is it a chart? Is it just a general conversation one-on-one? And then taking those complex technical things and breaking them down is so critical. And that takes practice,
Yes.
especially
Oh,
when you've just been able to speak to your kind
yeah.
about technical thing for so long.
Yes.
It's truly a skill set that I think we all have to work on in any part of life. I always joke that like if you can explain it to the 5-year-old in the room, you're probably off to a good start.
Yeah.
But those 5-year-olds have a lot of questions, so it's not always your
N-
best.
it's not always super easy explaining to people, and sometimes you have to, it's also tell them again and then repeat it.
Yeah, repeat it back to me. What did you hear?
Yes, what did you hear? Exactly.
I'm not sure if you've heard, there's a teaching philosophy, the see one, do one, teach one. They use it a lot in medical schools.
Yeah.
So you see it happen once, you teach it to someone, and then
Yeah.
you go do it.
Yes.
And that teaching is really where you learn how much you understood.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh, maybe I need to go back and see one again before I go do one.
Yes,
All right.
exactly.
Well, so when we talk about sustainability, what emerging trends or technologies do you believe will most influence how AEC project managers deliver complex projects over the next 5 years?
I think one of the biggest things, despite all the political winds blowing, saving energy in a building and building a building to a net zero, or somehow or another incorporating net zero concepts into a building to make it efficient, make it manageable, and if possible, incorporating renewable energy into projects, or at least having the capacity to incorporate renewable energy into projects is very, very important, because buildings are complex. And I've gone to many a building that is not operating properly and a brand new building. And 99% of the time, the reason it's not operating properly is it was not commissioned when the building was finished. Now, I don't know anybody who would want to get in a car that wasn't tested or an airplane that wasn't tested, but people build buildings all the time and they don't test them. So it's important to know that commissioning should be a base part of any project, regardless of what level you're trying to meet sustainability wise or not even meet a level. And you need to incorporate things into the building that are going to allow future things to happen. You might not incorporate renewable energy into a project, solar panels or whatever you might incorporate right away. But what does it cost to add a conduit from the basement to the roof? An empty conduit. It doesn't cost anything if you do it in the design. So instead of having 6 penetrations going through the entire building all the way to the roof, you have 7 or 8. Just incorporate extra. The amount of core drilling I've had to do in older buildings, it's brain damage. But if those holes were there and they were just plugged up, it would have made life easy. So there are just things you can do when you're starting a project to meet the requirements. Building in the way to add, if you don't have CO2 sensors, it's not in the budget. Just make sure the systems you're putting in can incorporate them. Make sure, they're the easiest things, which are required in most jurisdictions now. Lighting controls, motion sensors, all those kind of things. LED lighting is pretty much 100% ubiquitous now in any new building. So, but that's if you're renovating or repositioning a building, don't leave the old lights. You're there, you have the crews, you're doing it, take them out, okay? You might be repositioning just a portion, but if you have spaces that you know what's going in there, make sure they're requirements. The other thing I would always do is build in the owner of the building, who's ever building the building, should have build-out standards. These are the standards we're going to meet. And the pushback we always got is, well, why are we going to do this? Why is this going to cost me extra? And most of the times they don't cost any extra if you design them in. And the thing is they make life better for the other people who are going to move into the building after them, for the people who are there now. So they're meeting the same requirements. So
I like that. What I heard there was if you can't get to the sustainability thing you want now, set up the next person for success.
yeah, exactly.
So when the renovations come around, they're at least 20% of the way there.
Yes, exactly.
I really, as someone who likes future planning, I really enjoy that one. So as for our final question, we like to ask about our PM pitfalls. So what is the biggest PM pitfall you've identified, and how would you recommend overcoming it or avoiding it for those other project managers out there?
Well, I have 2 PM pitfalls. One
Love
of
it.
them, and this is my personal one, not trusting my gut. If I don't, when I have I'll call it an ootsy feeling about something, I got to check up on it. I'm going to dig and dig and dig until I feel comfortable, until I know for sure what I'm not feeling comfortable about is really been addressed. That's sort of my first one. You just got to use your project management gut or your project management instinct. But the next one is not paying attention. And what do I mean by paying attention? I mean, when you go to those project meetings or you get the reports, you truly read them carefully and you pay attention to what's being said. Because in there's going to be a clue as to an upcoming problem or an upcoming issue. And you just got to always dig down on those and understand it. When the biggest clue I have is my material is going to be here in 6 weeks. And I say, how do you know? And I'll always say, how do you know it's going to be here in 6 weeks? Well, it was in the email that they sent us when we first inquired about the material. Well, we just paid you the deposit. Have they confirmed the order? Have they done it? I will do, if you tell me that you based that on an email that before you even ordered the material, I want to know, now that I paid a deposit, I want to see a confirmation of the actual production date and the delivery date of that material.
Confirmation on that delivery date?
Yeah, confirmation on the delivery date. How is it getting here? And also, where is it coming from?
Is that weather coming in?
Yes.
And get us on the way?
Yes. A good example, something that once happened to me. I was having a large delivery delivered by sea from China, a very large delivery, like 10 sea containers of material. All right. And it was supposed to be on a train in Los Angeles. Okay. Due to problems in the port of Los Angeles, it got delivered to Vancouver, British Columbia.
Interesting.
Yes. And then it was going to go by train from there. But there were fires in British Columbia that slowed down the trains. So if you have something that's crucial to your project, very important to your schedule, just don't say, oh, it's supposed to be here on the 30th. How's it getting here? Where's it coming from? Oh, it's stuck in customs? What do you mean it's stuck in customs? Who forgot what piece of paperwork? Who's
And how do
following
we
up
get
on
it done
that?
quickly?
I mean, there's the amount of stuff I've learned about, that material had to go through Canadian customs and U.S. customs. So, I mean, I was slowed down on every turn on that one. So,
I think the two things you said,
yeah,
the two things you said really tie together too, right? Like you can't listen to your gut if you don't have those details, or if your gut says, wait, we haven't confirmed that that's arriving, right?
Yes.
Like that, well, who said that and why did they say it and when did they say it? That all comes back to communication. Like you said, trusting your gut and asking questions, noticing all the details. That's so crucial.
And
you don't get to zone out in a meeting as a project manager.
Yes.
Not an option for you.
It is so easy and not to follow up on those details. And also, if you're just taking up part of a shipping container, if the person who has material in the front of the shipping container wants it stored, are you going to be stored or are you going to be taken off?
These are excellent questions.
Yes, yes.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, David. This has been great. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your insight and your wisdom, and going through the lowest hanging fruit makes it feel very approachable, which I appreciate, and we can apply to so many different things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode at aecpmpodcast.com. There you'll find a summary of key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering project management endeavors.